What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Blazed and Confused, the podcast where curiosity is high, confidence is questionable, and logic usually shows up late. I'm Max.
And I'm Kain.
So, obviously, you get to hear that Noah is unavailable this week, and so my oldest has stepped in to record. Welcome, Kain.
Thanks.
So, he might be a little rusty, he's a little nervous, but we're going to get through this, and, he's excited, so share him some love. This week, obviously, since we have a younger participant, we're not doing any of our scary cryptids or paranormals or, anything really, even a conspiracy. This one's kind of an odd history thing, which is, still something we talk about pretty frequently on the podcast here. So, I don't know if anybody else has heard about the 1893 Chicago's World Fair. There is some conspiracy that circulates around this. I'm not going to get into it because Kane's here, but one of the big things that happens with this is, H.H. Holmes. I don't know if you guys have ever heard about that, but that guy kind of got his notoriety around here. Relatively bad dude. And then, there's a conspiracy because I think Chicago burnt down shortly after this, and a lot of the places around here were gone. So, it was something huge. It was a massive undertaking that we did that there's not really much physical evidence left. So, the Chicago World's Fair was nicknamed the White City, and it was the world's Columbian Exposition, right? So this was to celebrate whose 400th anniversary, Kain?
Christopher Columbus.
Yeah, so Christopher Columbus arrived, 400 years prior to this, allegedly. Columbus has his own stories are circulating around him. But here's what's crazy. How many people came to this?
Over 27 million visitors attended, making it one of the largest events in history at the time.
Yeah, so that's crazy. 27 million people. I know a lot of people, and you know a lot of people, right, Kain?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know, or do you think the two of us know 27 million people?
No.
Yeah, I don't even think we know, 200 people,
I don't think that's possible.
Yeah, that'd be crazy. But this is what made this place so impressive, right? Is that it's nearly, how big?
Nearly 700 acres.
Yeah, so 700 acres this exhibit is built, right? And, in 700 acres, that includes more than 200 buildings that they built for this place. Is that nuts?
Yeah, that's like 700 football fields.
Close to, but not quite. But, it is a lot.
Yeah.
200 buildings. Could you imagine?
Yeah.
That's a lot of walking. They said that when you would walk through the entire thing, you would cover 2 to 3 miles just if you walked in a straight line.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So, and then on top of that, the other thing that made this crazy, you thought this was kind of cool. How did they power all of this?
It was powered by one of the largest electrical systems ever assembled.
And what's crazy about that, you've listened to a couple of our episodes that I let you listen to, not any of the scary ones or anything. Who did we talk about that showed up at this?
Nikola Tesla.
Isn't that crazy? Nikola Tesla somehow, gets brought up in another episode. And, it is crazy. This is the first time a lot of Americans are seeing large-scale electric lighting. So, they would see it occasionally, but never to this size, right? Could you imagine not having light bulbs everywhere? I mean, I'm old enough, I've grown up with light bulbs. My dad's the same way. Our grandparents, if you believe some of their stories, they tell us, oh, I grew up on the back of a wagon. We didn't have electricity, right?
Maybe they'd have like candles.
Yep. But this is the first time people are seeing lights. So imagine that. This is 1893. You know how long ago that was?
I don't know.
It's about 200 years ago.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So then, the other cool thing was, what was the big thing that you saw that you were like, you know what? I've seen these, and this is where the original one came from. What was it?
That there's that the original Ferris wheel was then.
Yeah. The first ever Ferris wheel. And you kind of did your own research, right? Did you, what was the reason they built the Ferris wheel? Do you remember?
To compete with the Eiffel Tower, I think.
Exactly, which got revealed at another World's Fair. So this is, something I think that would be kind of cool. Maybe you think the same thing. Obviously now everything can be viewed through YouTube or, any kind of social media,
Yeah.
all these inventions. But wouldn't it be cool if we had World Fairs come back?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too.
I'd go to a lot of them.
Yeah, it would be really cool. I mean, you get to see all the inventions of the world, right? So it earned a nickname that, like I said at the beginning, it was called the White City. And the reason for that was because a lot of the buildings were coated in a white plaster. Now, white plaster at the time, glowed underneath these electric lights because, it's the first time you're seeing, like, if you walked into a house and all of their walls were painted, it'd feel like you walked into the sun, wouldn't it? Yeah. So, that was one of the crazy things, we already mentioned the Ferris wheel. Now, when you think of a Ferris wheel in 1893, we're probably thinking of like a small one. Was this one small?
No.
Yeah, no, this thing was huge. We'll get into more of that. We're just going to kind of briefly go over some of the other things that were revealed here, right? So moving sidewalks, I don't think you remember when you were a kid, we went to an airport and they have, I always call them like the treadmills, but it's like an escalator, the stairs that move for you, but it's just a piece of rubber that moves like a giant treadmill.
Yeah, I've seen those before.
Yeah, so they have them in some airports. Well, those were first revealed here. Electric fountains, which nowadays we all see electric fountains everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you go to a mall, there's a fountain there. You go to a park, there's a fountain. Hell, you go to what's your favorite thing to do during the summer? Go swimming? What do they have at swimming pools?
They got kiddie pools that got fountains.
Yep, with little fountains. Yep. And then here's the thing that I thought was cool because you've heard me talk about trips to Chicago. Have you ever heard me talk about having canals or lagoons everywhere?
No.
Yeah, because they don't anymore. It's crazy. I find it weird. But I think Chicago would be a lot cooler if they brought back more canals. Like, this looks like... I've showed you pictures, or even in movies we've seen of, like, France, where they have a lot of water in their cities, kind of like this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think Chicago would be pretty cool like that. I'm sure it would be more polluted than it was then, but that would be cool.
Yeah, it would.
And then here's one that I think is cool. They had an exhibit called the Palace of Fine Arts. You've been to what it is now.
Yeah.
With me a couple times, right?
Yeah.
And what is it now?
It's all full of science and industry buildings.
No, it's the Museum of the Science and Industry. Do you remember that? It's got the big swinging pendulum in the middle of it that like tells time. It's got the train inside and the submarine. Yeah. So we've been to that. So that's crazy that this has been around for as long as it is, and now the building is used for one of, if you haven't been there somehow and you're listening to this podcast, do yourself a favor and go to the Chicago Museum of Science and Industry. It is really neat. That is if you like, museums and learning stuff, because I think it's really cool. And then on top of that, there was the giant manufacturers building, transportation building, and then the one thing that both of you and I saw a lot of while we were doing this research together, which was the Republic statue, also known as...
the Golden Lady.
Yep. And it's crazy because that still stands. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even after the Chicago fire.
Yep. Which I remember learning about the Chicago fire in grade school, and you'll eventually learn about it. The story was a cow kicked over a lantern, caught the barn on fire, and burnt down half of Chicago because of the wind.
Oh yeah, I
Or
have heard
more
of
than,
that.
yeah. Yep. So, like we said, this was for the 400th anniversary of Christopher Columbus's voyage.
Just like a I can't think of it off the top of my mind, but it was like the I Survived book, how it tells you all about it.
Right? Yep. You did read the I Survived books. So, the thing that made this one cool was Chicago won between New York, Washington, D.C., and St. Louis, and then obviously Chicago, as the city that was going to host it. Now, this is crazy because, as we said, this happens in 1893. What happens in 1871?
The Great Chicago Fire happened.
Yep. And so this is what's, a lot of conspiracies wrap around this. Do your own research on that. We're not going to get into it today. But here's the numbers of everything, and this is what I found was absolutely crazy. So, how much did it cost for adults to get in?
It cost adults 50 cents.
Could you imagine going to a fair nowadays and only spending 50 cents?
Yeah, that would be like the world's funnest thing to do.
It would, right? But here's the difference. 50 cents back then cost $18 to $20 now.
That's a lot.
Yep. But that's how times change. You'll learn as you grow older, inflation happens and your dollar's not worth as much. But to be a kid, it was even better because you would have only spent how much to go?
25 cents.
Yeah. You could have gotten in for 25 cents, but I would have had to spend 50 cents. Now, that's not the only thing, right? Certain days they offer discounts like most fairs, because when you think about a fair, how long is the fair in Bartonville? Or how long is the fair that we go past in the summer? How long does that usually stay open?
Like almost 1 or 3 days.
Exactly. This fair was open for 184 days.
That's a lot.
Exactly. So like we kind of mentioned earlier, the exact documented attendance was 27,529,400 visitors. Now, during your research, what day was the busiest, or what day was the busiest, and how many people came?
The Chicago Day, October 9th.
And how many people came that day?
751,026.
Exactly. Could you imagine that many people? That's 750,000 people.
Yeah.
That's a ton of people to be there in one day. So, as we said, this fair went for 184 days. How many countries were represented in this thing?
46.
Which is nuts. I can't even name 46 countries, can you?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so either. So the exact amount that this fairground covered was actually 690 acres. And that is so much land that in your head you can't really even picture how much that is, right? Now, the estimated amount of dollars that they raised just during this fair was $13.76 million. And that's what it valued then. Now, that would have averaged to be $475 to $550 million for 184 days. That's a lot of money. Maybe we should start the World Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, get rich on people coming to look at new stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, this is more numbers to throw at you, but this is just to say how massive this event was. Roughly 44% of the entire U.S. population came to this fair. So just under half of everybody who lived in the U.S. came to this, which is nuts.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. So, as we said, the busiest day, nearly 400,000 people come through, with around 242,000 buying tickets at the gates and other people using pre purchased. Next busiest day was obviously July 4th. Or, I'm sorry, my numbers were back there. The opening day was 400,000, with 242,000 buying tickets at the gates, others using pre purchased. Next, after that, they thought, okay, let's see how many more people we get. Well, 4th of July, America's Independence Day, had only about 324,000 that day. October 9th, the big Chicago day, was the most ever recorded for the visit, which was the 751,000. So that is nuts. Now, I went ahead because this is kind of hard for you to research, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I went ahead and kind of saw like what the map looked like for when you visited this. So I'm sharing with Kain here a little bit of my research. So when you would arrive, you would enter the White City, is what they called it. Now the main entrance is what they gave the name.
The Court of Honor.
Yeah, so this is located in, just so anybody who has been to Chicago that has a little bit of knowledge or that lives in Chicago, whatever. The location of this event happened in Jackson Park, modern day Jackson Park. A visitor would walk in through these grand entrances. And now I highly encourage, while you're listening to this, please look up all of like the different buildings I mentioned. So look up the Court of Honor, and it is crazy. It is one of the coolest things I think I saw. Right when you walk in, first thing you see is the administration building. Now, this is what they called the symbol of the fair. Here's what people saw: a massive golden dome, classical Roman or Renaissance architecture, and offices for the fair officials. Now, you've been to Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember seeing some of the buildings up there? Don't they look really cool? Like the outsides of them look really
Yeah.
nice. Even we've got some here in town that still look cool. Could you imagine if these buildings still looked like this? Like how cool that would be?
Yeah.
It would be really neat. So, these buildings you might think like, "Oh, what's in there?" right? There's nothing cool. Inside the administration building is, as you would probably guess, administrative offices. Then on top of that, there was fair records, visitor services, everything else, right? This was just to represent the power and sophistication of the modern world, right? I personally think it would have been really cool if they put some cool stuff in there, don't you?
Yeah. Like a giant water fountain with everyone walking in and seeing like crystal clear water.
That would be cool. Now, you mentioned water. There was, I can't remember what they call it. It was either a lagoon or something like that. That they had these like gondola boats and other stuff on that you could get on, eat, whatever. Which it's still, like you said, it would be really cool. But if inside the administration building, the one that has a giant golden dome roof, it would be cool if they had something else. But I get what it is because there's, so much other stuff there. So the first thing that you see after that was the largest building at the fair, which was the Manufactures and Liberal Arts building. Now, this building's about 1,700 feet long and it covers 30 acres. So, Kane, what did they find inside of that?
They found like clothing, manufacturing, furniture, household products, scientific instruments, books, printing technology, fine crafts,
Industrial.
industrial inventions.
Yeah. And, what were some of the famous things? You probably don't know anything about these, but, what was some of the famous displays?
Like Tiffany glass, new consumer products, early business machines.
Yeah, which is cool, right?
Yeah.
So how long do you think you would spend in there?
I don't know, like a whole day.
Yeah, which is cool because you found a guy who told you about some of the consumer products that people were coming out with, right? Do
Yeah.
you remember what some of them were?
Juicy fruit,
Get closer.
juicy fruit, Aunt Jemima's pancake flour, PBR,
Which is a personal favorite of mine, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
Vienna sausages, the mammoth cheese that weighed 22,000 pounds.
That's a lot of cheese.
Yeah.
Could you, I mean, I imagine they probably called it the mammoth cheese because only a mammoth could eat it.
Yeah. Maybe a T Rex.
Yeah, right? Which I'm glad you mentioned that because there are dinosaur fossils that they displayed here, right?
Yeah.
In a different building, but, pretty cool. So after you would go through the manufacturers and the liberal arts buildings, you would come across, one that I find is kind of cool, especially to be represented in Chicago because modern day Chicago, there's no way in hell you'd see something like this, is the agricultural building. So the theme for this is what agriculture is, which is
Feeding the modern world.
exactly. So you would find in this building farm equipment, livestock displays,
Food production.
grain exhibits, and agricultural technology.
Vis- Visitors saw how farming was changing from traditional methods into industrial agriculture.
So that's pretty cool. Like, what do you think? If you think about traditional farming, what do you think?
Like people farming a lot,
Like, what do you think they're using to farm back in the
um,
old days?
like shovels, hoes. I bet they would use horses that they would put
Like the big plows behind?
yeah.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
Or like horses because they did
Yeah.
use horses
Yep.
back then.
Right. And so that's like going from those traditional methods to where now this is where you're turning into the modern world. So a lot of they're starting to come out with like steam tractors and stuff like that, which is designed to make it easier for farming, but also it was a huge change for farmers in many ways. So a lot of these three buildings, right? The agricultural, the manufacturers and liberal arts, and the administration building, those are something that you would see in what they would say in a day. So that's one day of traveling in this.
Yeah.
Now, day two, this is what they, kind of laid out for people just by the flow of things, was technology and invention. Now, this is where it gets kind of cool because you're like me, you like to learn stuff.
Yeah.
So, this is where you get to see all the new stuff that's coming out. So, the fourth building was Machinery Hall. Now, this is one of the most impressive buildings because inside, what'd they have?
Steam engines, industrial machines, factory equipment, power systems.
Yeah.
Which that would be crazy back in the old days because the Nikola Tesla just probably came out.
Well, that's in the next building. So these power systems are kind of more like steam power, stuff like that.
Yeah, like coal power.
Yep. And so this is where people like that want to learn about these systems, they could actually watch these machines operate in this hall, which is crazy because nowadays you go to a museum, you can kind of see how some of the stuff works that you go across, but not all of it. Now, the biggest themes that were displayed in the machinery hall were the Industrial Revolution, the manufacturing of power, and then our technological growth across America. So, again, big things here. Really cool, something to learn about and experience for the first time. Then the next one. This is the one that you've kind of mentioned, but this is, one of the most futuristic places. The Electricity Building. That's building 5. Now, Nikola Tesla actually did a demonstration here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he showed how what was the first time some of these people had ever seen anything.
The Nikola Tesla coil.
Right. And What they say, it was something like the incandescent light bulb. This is the first time a lot of people ever even got to see it.
The iridescent light bulb?
Iridescent, yes. Good job. So this is inside. Obvious what's going to be in here: electrical lighting, telegraph. Do you know what that is?
No.
So it's kind of
When they send like sound out, and if it bounces off stuff, if they
no,
can see it.
that's like sonar. So telegraph was like the original version of a phone. It would send a message and it only went one way. Or and then occasionally they would go both ways.
Oh, I've heard of those.
Yeah,
Like where they make little dings.
that is a Morse code machine. Very, very similar though. So they get to see all this, and then obviously early electrical appliances like air conditioning. What was the other one you had seen?
Dishwashers?
Yep, like early dishwashers. And so they get to see those. And then also they get to demonstrate power. Now this is where Tesla came out, and he demonstrated how to, without wire, transmit electricity to light bulbs and other electronic devices that he brought to display. So like we said at the beginning, this is where a lot of people for the first time in their life got to experience electrical lights. So the thing that was crazy was that the fair, as I've mentioned, was nicknamed the White City because they had these white buildings, and it was done on purpose, because light bounces off of white. Um, so all of these light bulbs lit this place up and made it just look literally glowing. So then you get done with the electricity building. What do you head to next as number 6 building?
Transportation buildings.
Yeah, so the transportation buildings. Now, this is where people get to see, again, a lot of things for the first time. This is where they would show the evolution of travel. So a lot of these displays include locomotives,
Railroad technology.
automobiles, like early examples,
Ships.
bicycles,
Transportation inventions.
anything that kind of slips through the cracks, right? So a lot of these main attractions there was something that I found really cool, and maybe you think the same thing. What was the biggest thing about the transportation building?
The golden doorway.
Yeah, and it was designed by a guy named Louis Sullivan. I didn't do too much looking into him. I just thought it was kind of neat. All of these things that have been lost to time, right? So way back in episode 5, we talk about renovate instead of destroy, right? You listened to that because your grandpa was on there.
Yeah.
All of the old buildings that hold all of these crazy designs, and again, all of this majority was destroyed by a fire. So we'll call that a natural phenomenon. But all of this stuff gets destroyed. Could you imagine being able to walk into a building in Chicago that's got giant golden doorways?
Yeah, that would be crazy. Like made out of real gold. I
That
bet some people would try to pick at
Oh,
it.
I guarantee you, somebody nowadays would have probably tried to steal it. Um, you know, I've told you about this a couple times. I'm not a super, like, you guys know me. I'm not a super devout Christian. I don't talk about Jesus every episode. There is a church in Chicago. I wish I could remember the name. It is 1 block away from the Berghof, which is a really world-renowned, German restaurant of Chicago. If you walk a block away from the Berghof, there is this wonderful Catholic church that it is just awe-inspiring to look at. It's not your typical, golden adorned or golden ornate, um, crazy church that's got all this stuff all over it. It is just a concrete building, but it is very neat to look at, and it's been around for years. So there's a lot of stuff that was designed in Chicago that still stands, that is cool to look at. But Chicago, I think, would be a much more attractive place if buildings like this still existed. So, with that being said, that would be the end of your day 2. You would go to the transportation building. Now, day 3. Now, mind you, again, this is still in the same location. This is day 3. You have to go back. So this is another one that you think's pretty cool. This is all themed around science, nature, and exploration. So the 7th building that they recommend, like in this flow, right, is the mines and mining building. Now, inside, there's nothing surprising. There is coal mining.
Just like what I said, coal mining and what they
Exactly.
use.
Yep. And then they also had gold and silver on displays, minerals from around the world.
Mining equipment.
Yeah, and all of this stuff is cool because if you're not from a mining community, which, funny enough, most of our area that we're recording from is a mining area. Every surrounding place is a mining area. So this is the first time a lot of people are ever even seeing mining demonstrations. I personally think this is cool as hell. I There are people who pay hundreds of dollars to travel somewhere to go into a cave and see how mining works still to this day. It's pretty cool.
If you guys watch Outdoor Boys or Outdoor Tom, they go and do a bunch of outdoor things. Like they'll go mine because they'll go in caves all the time.
Yep. Yeah, it is cool. And, give a shout out to the Outdoor Boys. Kane's a big fan. Unfortunately, they shut down their channel and now it's Outdoor Tom. So pass the torch. That's kind of cool. Maybe one day I'll do that with you with this podcast if we keep it going. 8th building. Now, you're a big fan of this, right? This is the fisheries building. Little known fact about Kain here. Big time fisher. He loves fishing, loves learning about fishing. Any kind. Even though we live in the central Midwest, he loves learning about the saltwater fishing and everything. So I bet Kain would probably spend all of his day 3 for the most part in this building, which is the fisheries building. Now, this is one of the most unique. What was inside?
Aquariums, fish exhibits, marine life displays. Visitors could see living sea creatures, which was still a novelty for many Americans.
Yeah, could you imagine being in the Midwest where we are? And this is before, big aquariums.
Yeah.
Which you've been to a couple of those, and this is before any of those. Could you imagine going somewhere and seeing a squid for the first time in your life?
That would be crazy.
Yeah.
See it like ink out.
No, that would be nuts. And back then they didn't have the glass like we have now.
Yeah.
So who knows how that building held up, but really cool to think about. And then, the last one, this one's kind of neat. The horticulture building. Now, this is just a glass palace. Imagine a giant greenhouse filled with plants. This is the first time, again, a lot of people are seeing exotic plants. They didn't have a Walmart to go to back in the day.
Yeah.
They couldn't just show up and be like, I want a hibiscus plant. Probably in 1893, a lot of Americans didn't even know what the hell a hibiscus plant was, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're able to go here and they're looking at exotic plants, flowers, trees,
fruit displays.
Yeah, and new greenhouse technology, which, as you know, where we live, what happens in the winter?
A bunch of trees and everything goes down and the new stuff sprouts up.
Yeah, but what's the big thing that kills plants in the winter?
Snow.
Exactly. And, back in the day, the only way you could live, again, you couldn't just go to a Walmart and pick up a bag of lettuce. You had to grow it or buy it from somebody who grew it, and they would use, like you said, greenhouses. So the building itself was, really neat. And again, I encourage, like I've said, keep looking at these buildings as we've named them. That's the end of day 3. Now we're on to day 4. Now, mind you, there's still another day's worth of exploration after this. So day 4 is kind of the culture, the artsy-fartsy human history part of things.
Yeah.
This one is the only fair building that is still standing, and this is known as the Museum of Science and Industry to this day. A little bit of reconstruction happened on the inside, so it's not the exact same, but same building, right? Um, so what that is, it's got all the paintings, sculptures, classical artwork, and international art collections. Now, this is where all those 46 countries that you talked about brought on all their artistic treasures, right?
Yeah.
So, a lot of famous painters, they have like Italian or French or German last names, right? Like Van Gogh.
Yeah.
Yep. So, a lot of these, this is the first time, again, somebody is able to actually go put their eyes on this art that they've heard about for years.
Like
So,
the night of museum, how everything pops out and you can see it. Like there's a baguette. I don't know if that's in it or if it's in a different movie, but like there's a baguette that was from when the baguettes were first made.
yeah, which is crazy because again, this is the first time that people are able to even see something like that.
Yeah.
So this is, this isn't even that long ago for us, but a lot of this stuff is still years or hundreds of years in the past to the people who are able to see it, and they have to see the originals, not a recreation or a picture like we do.
Yeah.
Most of ours nowadays they say, "Oh, it's too dangerous to travel with it." So, this happens, really cool thing for somebody to see. Also, still a place in Chicago that's really cool is the Museum of Fine Arts. They have rotating stuff, pretty cool to look at.
Yeah, kind of like the Harry Potter, the stairs that rotate.
Yeah, different thing, but would be cool to go see it in person, wouldn't
Yeah.
it? So, and then Building 11 is the women's building. Now, this is groundbreaking because, as you've probably heard in school, um, way back, not that long ago in the past, women didn't have a whole lot of rights. So, they weren't
They were
allowed.
fighting for a lot.
Exactly. So, this is the first time that something like this happens where they allow at a world fair art that was created by women to be displayed, women's inventions, literature, education achievements.
Historical displays about women contributes. What I'm thinking about right now is like Amelia Earhart, how
Exactly.
she proved men wrong that she could fly across
Yep.
places.
Yep. And it's crazy. There's all the historical things that happened, but this was huge for women. Now, later, still, unfortunately, in the future, even more people earn more rights, which is a good thing. It's just unfortunate that it took that long for us to finally get there. But, kudos for them. That this is huge. That's something that, again, is historical and is awesome that was on display at the World's Fair. Um, the 12th building now is the anthropological building. Now, this was crazy to us to read.
That song, that word sounds just like a tongue twister to
Yeah,
me.
it does. And it is really hard to say. Anthropological. Now, this is kind of just like the history.
Anthropological.
Yep. This is a history, pretty much. Now, this is where people are exploring ancient civilizations. Now, I could not find exactly what was on display about ancient civilizations because that's, again, one of the conspiracies that people kind of speculate is that this was an undiscovered ancient um, city that this World Fair happened in.
Yeah.
But here's what we thought was crazy. What did you read? Because it says Native American cultures. Now, that's weird because you're like, oh, okay, maybe they didn't experience Native Americans. But how did they display that, Kane?
They had Native Americans on display where you could see them. And then when you walked in, you'd see like all these new people. Like you'd see our history of how and what we looked like back then.
Which is crazy because that's not that far for them. Like Native Americans are still up and like living in their own areas. What I thought was crazy, and you think was crazy, they would literally have live people on display.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's not like when we go to a museum now and you see like an exhibit on Native Americans like they do at the Riverfront Museum.
Yeah, like
It's just a mannequin.
models.
Yes. This, they had the real people in like a glass box or, standing on a pedestal for people to look at, which nowadays is crazy to think, but this was normal and encouraged back then.
Maybe you'd think like Theodore Roosevelt from the Night of the Museum, how he.
But like actually him and not
Yeah.
like a mannequin that thinks he's him. Yeah, crazy. So then, on top of that, there's archaeological discoveries, which, like we mentioned, was the T Rex who probably wanted to eat that mammoth cheese.
Yeah.
All kinds of stuff that was dug up. And then on top of that, historical artifacts. So this was like an actual museum. Now that's the end of your fourth day. Hope you're still with us here because day 5. This word is a little bit hard for me to pronounce, and I'm sure it was for them back then. This is what they called the Midway Plaisance and the Entertainment Day.
I bet if I were to try to say that, I'd not get it right. Like plaisance.
Hey, you said it right. Good job. Have confidence.
Yeah.
So, after all the serious exhibits, right? This is after all. This would be like spending 4 days at a museum, and then finally at the last day, they're like, "Come enjoy the fair part now. Let's do it." This is where the big one comes out, and what is it?
The Ferris wheel.
Right. It was the biggest attraction at the fair. Now, it was created. Now, mind you, this is the first Ferris wheel. This is not, number 5. This is the first one, and it's created by
George Washington Gale Ferris Jr. Like, he would create the Ferris wheel because he's got Ferris in his name.
Exactly. And he's got a cool name to begin with. George Washington, our first president. So, now let me get into the numbers here because this will be a little bit of a mouthful. The statistics of this Ferris wheel. It was 264 feet high. Wild. Now, the capacity that it could hold in total was
2,160 passengers, which is a lot because
That's so many.
Yeah, like each cart would have to fit 60 people in it, which actually did.
Yeah. And that could you imagine a Ferris wheel now? Like the one in Shields that we go to at your soccer tournament.
Only fits 2 people.
Per cart thing, right?
Yeah.
This one fit 60 plus.
Yeah, that could fit like a bunch of people. That could fit like a lot of dozens of people.
Oh yeah.
Like
yeah.
that would be millions of families.
Over the entirety of it being open, yes.
Yeah.
Not in one go. Not that wouldn't work. So again, I would look this up so that you can get an image of it. The carts literally look like a trolley tram. It is crazy. It was literally like a moving living room on a wheel. Now
like,
this
the ski trams.
Exactly.
Even
those don't hold 60 people in them.
Yeah, those only fit like
maybe 5 to 10.
Yeah, 5
depending
to 10.
on how big they are. But yeah, this whole thing weighed 2,000 tons. That is crazy. Now, the reason that this was such a big attraction, number 1, it was the first one it ever had. Number 2,
a ride gave visitors a view of the entire White City. I bet you could see everything.
Right. And people think this, like if you read about this, number 1 thing people are going to say is, "Oh, is that the Ferris wheel that's on Navy Pier?" You haven't been there because it's not worth it going anymore. But Navy Pier's Ferris wheel is still only one that I think maybe fits 4 people per thing. That's nowhere near this size, though.
Normally, a bunch of Ferris wheels only fit 2 people or maybe just 1.
Yeah, which is nuts because when you think of one that fits 60 people, you're like, man, that's got to be something new. Nope, 1893 this thing's working. And it doesn't struggle, it just does its job, which is crazy in my opinion. But
if that thing went off wheels, I think that it would just stay in place instead of rolling.
Oh yeah, no, it would just sit. It's crazy. Especially with weighing 2,000 tons. But the other main exhibit of this area, and it's the final building that and I say building loosely, this is where you get into the international villages. So the Midway features recreated cultural areas from Egyptian villages,
German villages,
Irish villages,
Japanese exhibits,
African displays.
Turkish attractions. These were controversial become because some exhibits presented.
I'll read it. Now, what made this crazy was because it was controversial. Some of the exhibits featured, or presented cultures through the 19th century stereotypes. But nonetheless, stereotypes, no matter what you felt about them, the place was extremely popular with visitors. It drew so much attention and people loved it. Whether, nowadays people would definitely be way too offended to go through it, but it was just crazy. And so the thing that made us, myself and Noah, kind of decide to do this one, and unfortunately he's away for work, so he wasn't able to record this week. But why we were going to do this with Kain is because this is in 1893 something that people just thought was completely impossible. This is the turn of the century, right? This is the first time people are seeing a city of electric lights,
moving sidewalks,
the world's first large Ferris wheel,
early versions of modern appliances,
international foods,
new architecture styles,
and new consumer products. Like this is crazy. Juicy fruit, the gum,
that's still a thing now.
literally first came out at this World Fair. Not to mention, rest in peace, the bottle of Aunt Jemima's, times have changed and that's not accepted anymore, but Aunt Jemima's pancakes came from here. Just to think all the historical value of what came from this fair is truly astounding.
You'd think that people would collect boxes or other things from like the 90s. They wouldn't collect things from the early 20th century almost.
Yep. And it's crazy. And when we were doing our research, what'd that one guy have from the fair? That brick? And it's still like in pieces, like not broken?
Yeah, you'd think that piece would be disintegrated and not in pieces.
Yeah, it's crazy. And if you look at now, this layout, which I will post on our Facebook and our Instagram, so if you're not following, please do look. It gives you a layout of where everything was. It's really cool. I've got it all numbered. Everything that was then, what it is now. If you look at this, it truly does not look like Chicago. It is totally different. You look at Jackson Park, you will not recognize that this was there. And I think this is something we should bring back. I get that everything can be done via, Zoom call, satellite, whatever. Bring these back because, this would be something cool. I want to see cities really put on a show for everybody to come and look at because this is crazy. What do you think?
I think that if the Chicago was like this, I bet I'd pray that my parents would move to Chicago because that would be awesome to see everything and only get in for only 50 cents. And
50 cents was $20 for them as it is for us now. So you may think that you're only getting in for 50 cents. You're getting in for $20 there, rich books.
Dang it.
But no, I do think this would be something cool. Even if cities just went back to the old architecture, just do that. Quit making only the administrative buildings and courthouses and everything. Quit making those look old school. I would love to be able to go down to a restaurant in downtown Peoria and see it designed like an old school building. I get it that it costs more, whatever.
They still had moving sidewalks. I would not take a car anymore And I
It
bet
would
my
be good.
and I bet my dad wouldn't take his car all over the place because he would just step down and he'd just move all across the
It
world.
would be crazy. Nowadays we have electric scooters, those hoverboards, all of that.
Yeah,
That's, but
which it's not fun when you have to charge things, but
exactly.
electric scooters are I don't like at all, and I bet my dad doesn't like them because they're electric. Why can't you just ride a normal scooter?
Yep. But these things happen. The world changes.
I know that drones are cool. Like you can have a drone because that's how I've watched movies, spy movies, like how they use drones and they spy on people and like thermal detectors. But that was way back then. You couldn't even do that much. I think sonar wasn't even a thing back then.
It was, but it is very cool. Go back, look at some of these pictures of the World Fair. Some of the things we talked about today. You'd be pleasantly surprised with how cool this looked, especially if you've been to Chicago. Some of the stuff still exists. Obviously, the Science and Industry Museum, the Golden Lady. But what I want brought back is the lagoon. It is crazy. Kane and I are looking at a picture of it right now. There's
Yeah,
horses coming out of the water.
yeah, like water horses. There's a giant ship that has men rowing on it. There's a guy standing there. There's a giant elk statue.
Yeah, there's like a Poseidon statue
Yeah,
that
that kind of looks like when you look at a like soldier, it kind of
yeah,
looks like that.
yeah.
And there's even more elk across the area and there's people riding the water horses.
Yeah, it truly is awe-inspiring. This is something that when you look back at it, you're like, there's no way in hell that was in Chicago, but it was, and it's beautiful, and
It looks like there was even bison
yeah, there's all
statues.
kinds of statues of everything here, and it truly is beautiful. And like we said, bring them back. Let's start making stuff look cool and to stand the test of time. But it's been a pleasure. I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode. A little bit less spooky, a little bit more history, but this was fun. And Kane, how'd you feel now that your first time's done?
I feel good. I feel like I want to do another episode with you guys.
Well, we'll have to wait and see what the people feel. I'm sure that they're gonna like that you were on, and we had a good time. This was really fun. Um, hopefully next week we've got Noah back. Let's get him some time off of work. And this has been Blazed and Confused. Peace.
Bye.